Mark Rogers TV and SEC breakdown, looking at Arkansas's quarterback situation heading into 2016. I go to the guy I need to go to when talking SEC football. Chad Neipling joins me on SEC breakdown every Wednesday night. Chad, man, it's always a good time.
Hey, thanks, man. You know, we do. We have a great time on Wednesdays. We just interviewed Peter Burns. For people that missed that, go and check that video out. It's available on YouTube. You can also check it out on Podbean podcast. Mark doing a great job, man, emceeing us, kind of guiding us through this. And man, I always appreciate working with you. You're a class act and a real professional, man. I love it.
Wow, I get the endorsement right off the top. Good stuff.
That's right.
They're doing some nice work with Gridiron now as well. Brandon Allen, his ascension and his progression through this program, Chad, almost mirrors what happened with the program itself. Mm-hmm. Down and out when Bret Bielema took it over. Brandon Allen had the shoulder issue, really banged up a few seasons ago. A lot of criticism, played poorly, but much had to do with the shoulder and with the complementary support around him. And then he just progressed. 20 touchdowns 2 years ago, a 30-8 TD to pick ratio last year. The program's gotten better, the talent around him, and it just blossomed last year. And this Arkansas team was pretty serious come bowl time last year.
Yeah, you look at this team and how they started out, things looked really dreary for Arkansas fans. I had the privilege of being at a lot of the games this last year on the sidelines and witnessing a lot of it for myself. So Toledo game comes to mind, Texas Tech, one that came in, and of course you got Kingsbury making his comments afterwards. I think that still stings Arkansas fans a little bit when you think about it. You know, and in those games against Toledo, A&M, Tech, you know, Brandon Allen was throwing picks, just seemed like he couldn't get it done. The post pattern to Hunter Henry in the Toledo game, went after it twice in the end zone and just could not get it, overthrowing him at times. It just seemed like there was just something was off. And then everything just started to click. And when it did, this team really started to roll. And you can tell that when you start looking at the stats. You know, number 5 in the country at one point in passing efficiency, and you turn around number 15, third down conversion efficiency in the country, number 29 in production in the run game, things of that nature, total offense. You turn around and you look at the fact that, you know, his QBR rating was at a 166 mark to end the season, and that's really, really good. I mean, this is probably one of the more efficient teams in the SEC. If you go back and you look at them, they were one of the more efficient teams game in and game out, very balanced. And if you would have told me that Bret Bielema would have had an almost 3,500-yard passer by the end of the season last year, I don't know if I would have believed you at all. I probably would have looked at you like you're crazy, and I believe most people in the country would have, considering how much the love of the run game is under him at Wisconsin, now out here at Arkansas as well. And so I really feel like Brandon Allen, for what it's worth, man, he really proved he had a lot of moxie, especially in that Ole Miss game where he takes it in from a couple yards out and gets drilled driving into the end zone, and Arkansas picks up the win. And that's exactly what he needed, a key win to put on his shoulders to prove to not just his teammates, but to everybody in the Arkansas fan base that, hey, man, I am capable of winning a game. And that's exactly what he did. I'm a huge Allen fan, have been. His brother Austin's now coming into the picture, a lot more competitive version of him, a guy who will take a little bit more risk when it comes to the passing game. So I'm excited to see what happens under Enos in this next tenure with the next Allen brother stepping up.
Well, now that Brandon's off campus, Chad, and it's just Austin in place, obviously they can just maybe continue their sibling rivalry on the basketball court one-on-one or something, but it doesn't have to take place on the football field here. So it's kind of interesting. I've knocked out quarterback competitions, knocking out these positional breakdowns all over the country, and this is the only situation where I know of a inexperienced starter and the head coach saying, that guy is the guy, he's the incumbent, we're making him the starter, with 19 passes thrown last year.
Yeah, that's it. Bielema did this with BA, even when people were questioning Brandon Allen's ability, and people were wanting to see, well, hey, can Rafe Peavey do it? The recruit out of Missouri, 4-star recruit, dual threat. Then you talked about, people were like, well, what about Austin? They were questioning the quarterback position so much. And Bielema basically said, hey, look, man, this is our guy. This is who we're going with. And at first, you kind of question that, but I get it. Yeah, I think it's a lot of the head coach having confidence in his player and the player receiving that, and the player hears that. And so that makes him feel a lot better, like he's not having to look over his shoulder. Now, given this situation with Austin, there's some talent behind him with Ricky Town, the 4-star transfer out of USC, who is now 5-star by some ratings, and now he's here. Was also one of the only guys to throw a touchdown in the red-white game this spring, and hitting tight end Jamario Bell on I think it's about a 28-yard pass. So you look at that, and people are saying, hey, Austin didn't make the pass. Well, I think you're reading into it a little bit too much. This kid's got the moxie just like his brother, and like I said, he'll take a few more risks in the game. I think you need to give him a chance a little bit. That being said, the guy that's behind him, Rafe Peavey, again, the 4-star dual threat, I really think the only way you're going to be able to see what he's capable of, Mark, is if you take that green jersey off him in practice and let him bounce around a little bit. That's about the only way you're really going to be able to see a guy with that type of athleticism that can throw the ball and see his capability. But that being said, I have to say, if Bielema and Enos feel like Austin's going to be the guy, then have confidence in that, because Enos has proven that since he's been on campus, Mark, that he's capable of coaching up a quarterback. You look at Brandon Allen and his success. One of the things I noticed coming out of spring, going into fall, Brandon Allen last year, was the way he would climb the ladder up in the pocket. You would see the pocket start to collapse around him, and then he would move up into it and keep his eyes and continue to read the field. That was something that you just didn't see before with BA. And so those are things that I think having Enos, a guy who was a former quarterback at Michigan State himself and a Big Ten all-conference guy, that makes a big difference when you can talk to a quarterback and he understands what they're seeing on the field. So I'm very confident in what Austin Allen can do.
Yeah, we've got a number of guys that we haven't seen on the field, but we've heard a lot about. Town comes to mind, as you mentioned, out of USC. He had accolades all over the place coming out of high school. Rafe Peavey, you mentioned him as well, got away from Mizzou, much touted coming out of high school. But we also have Cole Kelley, who a little bit lesser regarded prospect out of that 2015 class, number 16 rated pocket passer. Kind of borderline 3-star, 4-star guy out of Lafayette, Louisiana. Ty Story, a kid out of Charleston, Arkansas, top 20 quarterback in that class as a pocket passer. So again, it surprises me that Austin gets the nod considering the talent behind him and his lack of experience. Can you sort through these guys a little bit? Have you heard or seen anything out of these other guys that makes you think, hey, this guy, he's probably the biggest threat to Austin?
Yeah, I think if you're going to look at it, and some of the questioning that goes into that is it's almost kind of like a seniority-based decision by Bielema. It's like this guy's been on campus the longest. He's been grinding. This is the guy we're going to give the opportunity to first. That being said, coming into fall, and with those first couple of games with Louisiana Tech, TCU coming up, having to travel there to go to Fort Worth, those other guys had better be ready, because if Austin can't pull the trigger, I'm quite confident that Bielema will look at one of these other guys, with Ricky Town, like you said. And, of course, Ty Story was highly, highly recruited out of, just a small town, Charleston, Arkansas. This guy was looked at by Saban. Alabama was really after this guy. He's a play-action type player. He could take the snaps from under center. You take a look at Cole Kelley, another guy who can play in that play-action type system, that pro-style offense, taking snaps from the center at 6'7". And as far as I'm concerned, Cole Kelley's the guy you better watch out for. With that type of size, he also has the ability to move. Reminds me of Fitzgerald at Mississippi State as far as size and mobility a little bit. And he has that arm on him. He has a big arm. People in Arkansas got familiar with Ryan Mallett and his big arm. This guy has that same type of arm. I don't know necessarily that he can make those passes off the back of his foot like Ryan could in the corner of the end zone. We haven't seen that yet, but from what I've seen out of Cole and been able to hear from things coming off of campus, he's a really underrated player. I just think he's one of those guys that didn't make it to a lot of camps, recruiting camps, and so he may have went under the radar a little bit. But this staff has been really good about going out and finding talent, diamonds in the rough, as it were, and guys that are productive on the field. So that being said, I think if you were going to look at a guy that could potentially challenge Austin, you would look at somebody like a Ricky Town. Ty is a guy that could be in the mix, but I think he's a little too quiet so far. I want to see more out of him as far as being vocal and being a leader that gives you confidence that he could be a guy to challenge Austin. And I think once Cole gets on campus and gets settled in, he's a little young right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get redshirted this year coming in as a freshman. I think that could possibly happen. If that's the case, again, they are stacking up talent at this position going forward. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of offensive coordinator Dan Enos and his effect and his ability to coach these guys up and get them ready. I do think that you can never overestimate the impact that he had coaching Brandon Allen and seeing the success that he had on film when going out on the recruiting trail. So that being said, if you're going to look at a guy to challenge him, it's definitely going to be Ricky. He's a pure passer, man. I've never seen a sweet spiral like that come off a kid's hand, and he's got some power on it too.
You know, Chad, as soon as you mentioned the seniority possible decision by Bielema, it reminded me of the situation at Alabama in 2014 with Blake Sims, with all the 4- and 5-star hotshots coming onto campus like Cornwell and Barnett, and then, of course, Jay Coker, much ballyhooed coming from Florida State. It was Blake Sims who earned all the respect from his teammates, grinding it out year after year, though not being in the spotlight, not being a starting quarterback. He obviously gained a lot of equity in that locker room, and it paid off for him, and he turned in a pretty substantial season for Alabama in 2014, and we may see the same out of Austin Allen.
Indeed.
All right,
I think oh, yeah, go ahead.
That's all right.
I think with Austin, you definitely have that opportunity. We'll see.
All right, breaking down Arkansas quarterback with Chad Neipling from Gridiron Now, SEC Breakdown. Please join us. We release that show every Thursday morning at SEC Breakdown. All right, Chad, good stuff.